no way this guy isn't on speed. And then it'll come out later in the conversation that they're on Adderall. That they take Adderall, they have prescription, they always like, well, I have ADD. You know, oh, it's that ADD. I got ADD too, motherfucker. I can go get a prescription.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that mean?
Have you ever taken Adderall?
No.
I took it and didn't shut the fuck up, but I couldn't focus on anything. I took it in college to write a paper, and someone would come in and be like, hey, how's the pizza? And I'd go on a fucking rant about pizza. We had nothing done. Nothing done. That's like speed.
Yeah. Speed is supposed to be good for organizing.
And growing up, I was,
What's the downside to Adderall?
You lose your teeth?
Well, it's not just that. I think your heart is just
I don't believe this
Too
shit.
many pizza.
It freaks you out. Fast pounding or uneven heartbeats, pain or burning when you urinate. That's banging chicks that are on speed.
I'm gonna have to
Taking more than
already
usual,
recover.
feelings of extreme happiness or sadness, tremors, hallucinations, unusual behavior, or motor tics. Beep. Dangerously high blood. High blood what?
Not terrible. Let's be real. Not awful.
Well, see, there is a lot of people that are on this stuff on a daily basis. Dangerously high blood pressure, severe headache, buzzing in your ears,
Talking
anxiety.
more than usual.
There's a lot of people that are on this. A lot. Like there's okay.
And entertainment.
Let's take it. Not just entertainment. Journalism. Journalism is a big one. This guy who was in here, who's a professor, actually told me that he knows so many fucking journalists. And then I started asking journalists, and they confirmed it with me. Like, yeah, everybody's on it. And I go, everybody? He goes, everybody I know that's a successful journalist is taking Adderall. I go, why? He goes, you got deadlines, you can work, you don't get tired, you get things done, you focus. He goes, you got like laser beam focus. I go, how many of them are abusing it? He goes, they're all abusing it.
Damn.
It's like steroids for writing.
Yeah, right?
PDs for writing.
So let me ask you this. If you had to guess, what's the number of prescriptions every year for Adderall in the United States? Let's guess.
Say that again?
The number of prescriptions every year for Adderall in the United States.
I have to know
I'm
what
going to
the
say
prescriptions are.
5 million.
I'm going with 30 million.
30.
I was going to 20 to 30 million.
Yeah.
I
I'm
can't say
going
20.
high.
How many
I'm
people
going
are
super
on
high.
it right now? How many people are
No.
on Adderall?
See, they don't do it that way. They write prescriptions written. So, like, say if you
I
get
see, I
3
see.
months worth,
Yeah.
you might use it 4 times in a year, so you would be 4.
Yeah.
Right? So let's find out. I'm saying 30.
I'm going to go 20.
20.
Let's say a little low.
I'm going to say 5.
Well, knowing what I said, you're still going to go with 5?
5, Eddie? Come on.
10.
It's peer pressure, bro. Don't give in.
I'm
Okay,
gonna go.
stick with 5. Stick with 5.
What do we got?
Best I could find is from 2012, and it says roughly 16 million Adderall prescriptions were written for adults between 20 and
Now what?
39.
Well, that's
Now
pretty good for 2012.
But that's
However,
adults.
that's 5 years ago.
That's
Yeah,
adults, doesn't include kids. But a lot of kids took it in school and into college and are now those probably reporters. That
Hell yeah. It's about 20.
5 years ago, those kids are 20 now, right? They could be 15, now they're 20.
Yeah, well, this only started with age 20, so kids that were in high school were 16, 17, 18,
They don't
19.
have updated statistics?
I just tried to type in 2016, and this is an article from 2016 using these stats. So
Interesting. Very interesting. It's crazy because it is speed.
What
And you can get it prescribed to you. All you have to do is say, oh, just can't focus, tired all the time, I just don't know what to do. Okay. They just write you speed.
Wouldn't it help you in writing too? Really everything.
Maybe. Some people say it doesn't help you creatively because you're so like that it's better for like organizing things and moving your notes together.
Painting your house.
Like the late great Robert Schimmel. Do you know who Robert Schimmel was? Stand-up comedian. Hilarious. Dear friend. Great guy. Died a few years back. He accidentally took Adderall. He actually had a heart attack, and he went to he thought he was taking his heart medication, took the wrong shit. He took someone else's Adderall. Called his doctor, and he's like, what do I do? He goes, how much do you take? And he looks at the bottle, tells him the dose. He goes, you're gonna be fine. He goes, you're just gonna be up for a while, and you're gonna be very speedy. And so he just said, I just organized my notes. He said, I just got in front of my computer. And I couldn't stop organizing, just going over my notes and just pulling out pages after pages and writing things down. He said, I've never been more focused in my life. He goes, I'm scared to try it again.
I wonder what it's like working out on it.
A lot of people work out on it. We had a lady in here recently who said she works out on it. She said she gets pumped.
Probably goes nuts.
When I was 19, there was this 23-year-old heavy metal chick who had some speed, and she was hot at the time. And we did it a little bit, and my dick was so goddamn small. And she was determined determined to blow it up. I kept saying, I'm sorry, it won't work, it doesn't work.
Because of speed.
And she goes, don't worry, I got all day. And she just went on forever, and she did eventually resurrect it.
God bless her.
It was,
Wow.
It was wicked.
God bless her.
Sucked that dick all day long.
She was determined. She had a hard day.
No way was she going to give up. No. Imagine how long it would take. Imagine. When you do speed, your dick does not work.
Really?
It just shrinks up. Yeah.
Whoa.
What the fuck would you try that for?
It's terrible. I don't recommend it to anybody. It was terrible. I was young. I was 19. She was hot.
A lot of pool players used to take speed. They said it helped their game. Like they'd take a bunch of different kinds of speed.
To focus on the ball.
Yeah, it'd make because pools are very it's a lot of intense focus and like tiny adjustments you're making. You got to really concentrate on the angles and what you're trying to accomplish. It's a very mentally taxing game when you're gambling. So a lot of these guys, they gamble for like 10, 12-hour sessions.
Here's a question for your golden snitch friend. If I have a prescription for Adderall, can I fight in UFC?
No.
What if I have a real deficit?
Crazy Tim Crater actually got pulled from a card because he had a real deficit and he was on Adderall. They pulled him from a card way back in the day.
Oh,
this was like Ultimate Fighter days when he was off the
Wild
Ultimate
West.
Fighter. Yeah, exactly. Adderall, the new drug of choice of many major leaguers. Wow.
Meaning baseball, though.
No,
Baseball,
look, this is football. You're saying
that's weird they're showing
That's
that.
just a weird video.
Yeah,
okay.
Baseball, I've always heard they fuck with Adderall.
Adderall is legal and easily obtainable, but also dangerous if abused. Use in Major League has reached absurd level.
Baseball, that's
Absurd? Dangerous if used, but the thing is, like, also, if you use it, you might be the best fucking baseball player alive and make $1 gajillion. It does provide you with energy that you wouldn't normally have. It's cheating, says Dr. Richard Lustberg, New York State licensed psychologist and member of the American Psychological Association.
Yeah, baseball.
You try to make money.
But yeah, it's weird.
You got 15 years to make money in baseball.
I'm injecting Adderall into my veins.
I'm shooting it right in my dick.
Right, my turkle.
You people are
I'm
crazy.
trying to get paid.
But in fighting, if you legit have a problem, yeah.
But what is that problem? See, that's the problem. That it's never been clearly defined to me. I've talked to a bunch of psychologists and psychiatrists about it. I'm like, what is ADHD? Like, how do you define it? And you define it by a series of characteristics that people have. But you could just say you have those. I mean, you could complain about all sorts of things that are on the list. It's not like they test you like, oh,
No.
you have syphilis.
There's no blood type.
Hey, man, let me test you. Oh, yeah, bro, you got a disease. It's not like
you guys are older than me, but even when I was a kid, like, if you were distracted and couldn't sit still, you just think, like, he has a lot of energy, he needs to play or go outside more. Like, no one was fucking taking medication.
UFC exec Frank Mir was not denied an Adderall therapeutic use exemption by Nevada Athletic Commission. So what did he say?
So he got one.
Interesting.
For Adderall.
He was granted one by USADA. That's interesting because maybe Tim Crater could have been granted it. But it was public. I'm not saying anything that people don't know about. They were all talking about it at the time. You know what? I think that for the people who really need it, this has got to be very frustrating to see people like use it and abuse it.
I told Brian Callen, I was like, you have ADD like I've never seen before.
You think so?
Anything. Oh, but he's all over the place, and he was like, oh, for sure I have ADD. He went to doctor's like, nah, you're good.
Really?
Yeah, doctor. Like,
He's not on Adderall?
I told him to fire his doctor. What?
Brian's not on Adderall?
No, he's on nothing.
He played it wrong.
He's on life.
Fitzsimmons is on it.
Brian didn't want it.
He was on. He's on Ritalin. Fitzsimmons is on Ritalin.
What's the difference?
I don't know. It's speedy. He did the podcast the other day, and his knee was like he does like a lot of this.
Tapping on
Does
stuff.
a lot of like movement. He's like constantly moving a lot. And someone asked him on Twitter, like, "What's that about?" And he's like, "Ritalin."
Weird.
Yeah.
And he just wanted on this to talk fast and for his podcast.
No. He's been on it because he has legitimate ADD, whatever the fuck that
Yeah, I was
is.
gonna say we don't know what legitimate ADD means.
Okay, let's let's define it. Like, let's try to see if someone has a definition. What is legitimate?
What do you think it is? What do you guys think it is? I think it's someone who can't focus on fucking anything and they're distracted by everything.
Well, it's also there's definitely that. it's also patterns and patterns of like behavior that you develop in your life. But there's also probably people that have a legitimate disease, like there's legitimately something wrong with their brain. The question is, how many people legitimately have something wrong versus how many people are just abusing it because
They're just assholes.
Yeah, they just want to use speed, get all that energy, and get fired up.
Is it possible? Is there any chance that maybe in some cases ADD or some kind of brain dysfunction is caused by the vaccines? Maybe is there a possibility that it's a vaccine?
Who knows? Are you taking it there?
Dude,
I don't know.
There's definitely side effects to almost every medication that you take for certain people. Adult attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, is a mental health disorder that includes a combination of persistent problems such as difficulty paying attention, Brian Callen, hyperactivity, Brian Callen, impulsive behavior, Brian Callen. Adult ADHD can lead to unstable relationships, Brian Callen, poor work or school performance, Brian Callen, low self-esteem,
Not Brian
Callen.
Callen. They're not doing. Now you don't have no self-esteem. Can't give it to you, bro.
And other problems. What are the other problems? We don't even want to talk about those. When other problems. Be specific, motherfucker. This is a medical diagnosis.
But if you read that, that's basically every kid you've ever met.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem.
Ever.
You get kids. Kids are filled with energy, and they want to play, and they want to have fun,
But they
and
don't
they
want
want to
to
be
sit there.
stimulated.
They don't want to sit there.
Yeah, and then you make them
listen to your shit.
Yeah, talk. They sit in an uncomfortable bullshit plastic chair, listen to some monotone asshole who's teaching them nonsense.
They're
They don't
doing
give
the
a fuck about.
schooling wrong. It's not the kids' issue.
I think that's a big part of it. But parents want to give it to their kids because they just want their kids to pay attention. You know, I had a neighbor who got their kid on Ritalin. There was nothing wrong with this kid. They got the kid on Ritalin. He's just like this all day.
Stupid parents.
He's just like,
Fuck, focus this
Just
fuck.
listen.
Hey, focus this fuck.
he just listens.
Probably chilling video games too.
Probably, right?
Just get a fucking
Madden.
hell yeah. Just killing
Plays on
everybody.
bitches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now.
Playing Madden.
Here's how many people are medicated. But the real question
Playing
is like, how many
MTG, getting
people
pissed off like
actually
me.
use the medication versus how many people are medicated because doctors are
I'd
cunts.
like to meet someone really who has that problem, who really has ADD and figure it
I
out.
bet some of them kids were seriously abused.
I did dab with a mess, but yeah, nobody really sure.
That's definitely a
Can't
possibility.
do
A lot of
much.
abuse going on.
Well, there's also like
Ooh.
emotional abuse.
I like
People just yell at their
I
kids,
like the
beat their
same.
kids. There's kids that people get ignored.
Kids
You
don't
know,
have friends.
People
Who knows
grow up
what
with
it is?
parents that are just assholes, and they're just
They
their whole
suck.
life is like they're constantly walking on eggshells. They're all fucked up psychologically because of it.
Bummer, man.
Yeah, it's a bummer, dude. You hear? I can't read horrible stories, but I read some story about some guy in Texas that his 3-year-old daughter wouldn't drink her milk, so he made her stand outside by a
Brother.
tree, and she disappeared.
Brother,
He went back out 15 minutes, and she was gone. And the police went looking for her. They can't find her. She disappeared.
did you hear in the interview what he said?
What he
Because
said?
the guy put her out there, and they go, what do you think happened? He goes, there's been a lot of sighting of coyotes in the area.
That's king of
Coyotes. I read that. I read that exact article. I couldn't sleep that night, man. I could not stop thinking about it. It has to do with kids. It fucks my
3-year-old.
world up.
Oh, hell yeah.
3-year-old outside.
Because she wouldn't finish her milk, and she has a disability.
Oh my god.
She has a disability. She wouldn't finish her milk at like 1 in the
Coyote
morning.
ate
So
his
this
kid.
fucking moron, who they've already taken
was
the
1
other
in
kid
the
away.
morning?
1 in the morning.
Oh.
Wouldn't finish her milk.
Now you understand Hillary
Clinton.
Clinton.
And then they've already.
Our
child
kids
custody,
are
I can't
belong
do
to
it.
us,
One of the kids
something
way
like that.
before. It's
So
people suck. Man.
almost like definitely that kid.
I'm not buying a guy, but that guy, I would fuck up for free.
Yeah, that guy doesn't.
That guy should be tortured. That guy should be
The
tortured.
fact that he could do that to a baby.
Tortured
3 months with
Jesus.
his own daughter.
God
And I think about
damn.
that. I think of my kid. I think how scared he'd be by the tree. It fucks my world up. Man.
Missing Todd. She's still missing, right? There's
Yeah.
no update on that. No, they never found her. She probably got eaten.
They got deserted.
The thing is,
Jesus Christ.
Meanwhile, you probably
you fucking killed her.
that story up.
You might be right.
You might be right, Eddie.
You might be right. Might have.
I'll be right,
You gotta
God
have
Jesus.
death penalty.
Where's the proof in the story? That sounds like, hey, I gotta tell him something.
He did it either way.
Yeah.
Just left her outside. If he knew there's coyotes around, he's asking his kid to get eaten by a coyote.
Yeah.
He might have wanted the kid to get eaten by a coyote
Because he's a bad person.
he's a piece of shit. He's, raising a kid tests you. It's like, there's some people that are just fucked in the head.
Haven't seen Pia. My parents give me everything I want, but they're really strict, and I can't even fucking feel. Can't even have feelings, man. Yep. Yeah, more baby. No. Play the fucking Girl Hulk, or something. Play something, man. Really.
The Google memo thing, the difference between what that guy actually wrote on the memo and what was published in so many different publications,
I
so
would
many
take
different
the
online
damage.
websites, it's just straight up libelous. Like that guy, I know he's going to sue Google, but he could probably sue a host of people once he's done with that. Because they changed what he wrote and turned him into this horrible, evil, sexist person to the point where the CEO of YouTube was saying that she read it and it made her sad. That the whole thing made her sad. Well, he wrote a piece based on why people of different genders are more inclined to gravitate towards specific things.
But he made an error.
What was the error?
The error that he made was that he used a reserved term, neuroticism,
Yes.
the Big Five personality inventory, where it is a reserved term denoting a particular psychometric. And so rather than saying men are less conscientious than
He
women,
said women are more
he
neurotic.
said women are more neurotic.
I actually brought that up with him, and he regretted it. He regretted bringing that, because I told him, I said, that's my only criticism. It's like, that's a derogatory term.
But again,
I
had not quite remembered
Mm-hmm.
that the Big Five personality inventory, is what openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. When you see something that careful, most people just didn't read it. They went with like the headline.
Right.
So that's the first thing. You should guess. Somebody that smart is probably using a term. If I say moral hazard, you don't know economics, you're going to think, oh, wow, what is a moral hazard? Is that like reefer? Has nothing to do with that. It's a reserved term.
No.
Right? So if I'm talking about rent seeking
It's
or
a
moral
type
hazard,
of
and I'm
danger
talking about
to your
landlords,
morality, right?
or somebody offering your kid a doobie after school.
Right.
So that was like the first intellectual failure. I just have been dealing with this where I talk about power laws and statistics, which is a particular type of probability distribution. And somebody says, geez, powerful people in our country are so protected and privileged. Why do we need laws to protect them? Like, what? Oh, you said power law. It's like, that has nothing to do with... There used to be this character on Saturday Night Live whose name was Emily Litella, played by Gilda Radner. And they'd bring her in, and she was hard of hearing. She'd say, what's all this I hear about a death penalty? The deaf have problems enough as it is. And then she'd riff for 2 minutes, and it's death penalty. Oh, that's entirely different. Never mind. So she was
Remember that.
Remember? It's like violins on television. We need classical music for
Gilda
kids.
Radner was awesome.
She was awesome.
Rosanna Dana.
Oh my God, we couldn't do any of this stuff anymore.
You couldn't. You really couldn't. Yeah.
But getting back to the Demore thing,
Yeah.
I'm checking our tree and it's exploding here. The thing about what he did was he was trying to write a pro-diversity memo. If you lie about the differences between men and women, what are your odds that you'll be able to hack a solution to getting all?
Baraya gets you a linker. That's pretty good though. Delirium. Yeah, also a free one. Got one more green than I should have. I guess I had to add more red. At least one more. There you go. Liliana Nobody. Oh shit. It's dangerous. Sounds like a female. I'll get this in. Let's play this. And this. Edge over one. And play this. Go. I love this guy. I remember Raging Goblin. God, it gave me so many wins. That card gave me so many damn wins. Go. That's 3 damage out of what? 1/1 with haste. I love that card. That's fine, I'll kill it a little bit. Give me a sec. It's gonna help you, but I'm good. Goodbye. Yeah, it's dead. You can sacrifice it if you want. Yeah, it's not gonna fix your man, at least. Got 4 already, right? Got 3. Alright. Not 4, 3. Cool. Alright. Thank you. That was awesome. Take 3. You're done for 12 already. Awesome. Hadouken. Now it's your turn. I get so many permanents. I got 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the new mechanic could have had more shit. Awesome.
All the brilliant women in our country who care about STEM into the workforce. This is what we need to do.
Right.
There's no shortage of brilliant women. You know, I've collaborated with them. I know they're there. We need to figure out as a society, do we need to pay women more so that we can get them out of working in the home and taking care of older, parents and young children during their prime years? We need to be very creative about the actual differences between men and women. Should we have a rule, not equal pay for equal work, but equal pay for unequal salary negotiation? If we don't allow
that's
ourselves...
a good point. Please elaborate on that, because that is an issue with why women sometimes make less than men, is that they don't have the same sort of aggressive salary negotiating tendencies that a lot of men do. Aggressive, testosterone-driven sort of...
I mean, there's all sorts of things. Again, I don't want to mansplain any...
But isn't that a big issue, too? I mean,
look at Chekhov's short story called The Nincompoop, in which it's an employer and a domestic worker in his home, and he talks to her about all of her wages, and then he starts taking away little bit by little bit for, you broke a cup and you were a little bit late, and he whittles her compensation down to nothing, and she accepts it. And then the employer says, you stupid fool, I just cheated you out of your entire
wages. I'm going to give them to you, but understand that this is how an employer cheats an employee. And you're just like, whoa. Right. So this is an old Russian speaking a truth, which is, don't allow yourself to get taken advantage of. Now, you could say that's really horrible because it's called the nincompoop, right? Or you could say, actually, that was an attempt to talk about a problem, about needing to be more aggressive and more assertive. So, getting back to the Damore issue, Damore needed to set this thing up at Google differently. So I took my son to the local pinball arcade. And just think of it as a bunch of workstations where nobody's getting paid. Instead, you're paying for the privilege of staring at this thing for hours with the bells and lights doing something with balls and mechanical systems. There are not a lot of women trying to integrate the pinball arcade because it's a loser activity, right? That's how they see it.
Pinball's for losers?
Yeah. I play pinball. I'm a loser. I know these things. Okay?
My friend owns a pinball arcade.
Yeah.
He's got a restaurant with pinball in the
It's
side.
going to hurt me.
No.
The point is, this is something which is low prestige. It's anti-compensated.
Yeah.
And
anti-compensated. That's a good way of pointing it.
Right. It's just like you're just plugging money into the machines. So my point is that what Damore said
got 6 men.
was,
Where are you
it's
gonna
not
play?
cognitive
That card sucks, I
ability,
swear.
you idiots. It's interest and temperament, which is hugely liberating.
Right.
If it's not basically cognitive
good job.
ability, if men are as smart as women, but men can do something for hours and hours, often uncompensated, in a kind of robotic, monomaniacal, tunnel-focused kind of a way, is that necessarily a great thing? Well, it happens to be compensated now.
Well, it's only a great thing if that's what you choose to go into for a career.
I program, and I hate it. I hate
programming.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
Well,
Play that funky Indian violin thing?
Exactly. but I'll spend hours doing something like that.
Right.
But the point is that coding turns me into like this autistic, spectrumy guy. I get speech apnea. Again, I don't want to say anything against.
Do you really? So, like, the more you get into coding, you really sort of adopt a code mindset?
So if you started talking to me while I'm coding, right? You say, hey, Eric, do you want to go out for a beer? I'll start to say, maybe later.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
Like
it's probably because I'm being annoying and I'm distracting you from your work.
Exactly, right?
Right.
I see you as annoying.
Yes.
I'm trying to follow.
I see me as annoying too, if that helps.
If you're doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu and I come in and say, hey, Joe, you want to go out for a beer? Like, I got my hands
getting
full.
choked, bro.
Yeah. So, the issue is that a lot of us, who have male hardware, male software, recognize that we get obsessive, compulsive. We're not always thinking about reward.
Right.
It's not necessarily the most attractive set of characteristics. When I do math, I'm definitely wildly on the spectrum. And I'm proud, by the way, I'm proud of it. It's not like...
Right. It's not a derogatory term, and you're actually talking about yourself.
Well, when I'm socializing,
yes,
I'd like to think that I'm fairly normal.
You're fairly normal.
Fairly normal.
Yeah.
But when I'm doing math,
yeah,
I don't want to be.
Right.
I want to kill that problem.
Yeah.
I want to think through that thing. I want to have that theorem.
Well, I'm that way I'm not on the spectrum in any way, but I'm that way with writing for sure. If I'm writing and someone came over to talk to me, I'd be like, I can't talk. I'm in that zone.
My wife will, come over and she'll say, wow, you're really sharp with me. Like, huh? What? I barely even noticed that you were...
Oh, she's needy.
No. Well, the thing is that we've collaborated on, she brought geometry from quantum field theory into economics. And so the level of, she occupies brain space with me. But she will kick out of that space if the kids need something. Whereas I'll just say, I'm sure the kids will be fine. She'll say, they're 2 years old, Eric. They're not going to be able to take care of themselves.
Right.
And so she'll have a much more, she always has her compassion running, whereas I can turn it off, turn it on for periods of time when I'm focused. There are these differences. And, I think we need to, in part, to teach women how to underdeliver.
Under-deliver?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, if you can't risk under-delivering, then you can't shoot for the, you can't swing for the fences as often. You want to make sure that you're going to be able to not disappoint. So men very often, like, hey, I thought I could do it. Didn't quite work out. It's going to take another couple of weeks.
But that's a weird way of putting it, though, because that's a results-oriented way of putting it instead of an ambition-oriented
But
way
this is
of
what I'm
putting
trying to say. Like, if the real secret of life is overpromise, overdeliver.
I don't
Right.
think it is, though.
Assume that it is. Assume that you lose out when in a bid if somebody else is going to promise more than you. And then if you can't over-deliver, given that you've already over-promised, then you can't actually delight people so that they're going to want to do multiple go-rounds.
That's like an economy of bullshit, though. Like, do we really want to even promote that? Like, why not just be... Why? Why not just be honest about what you can do?
Because you don't know what you can do. You know, this is the thing that I
Be honest about what you think you can do.
No.
More? No.
Okay, but let's use it in a practical sense.
Okay.
Like
so this was the whole
say if I bring you a car,
Yeah.
and I say, hey man, I think the transmission's gone on this fucking thing. Do you know how to fix one of those things? And you're like, definitely, I know how to do it.
I can do it.
But meanwhile, you don't.
Right.
Well, I don't want to go to you, man.
Well,
I want to go to the guy down the street.
No,
Like,
but you've
been there for 25 years.
But you've stupidly given me the car.
I
Right?
know, I've asked you a question and you lied to me.
Now I go home.
I didn't
and
give
say,
you the car
"Honey, I don't
necessarily."
know what I'm doing. I'm trying to open this thing. I don't know. Right? I better learn transmissions fast.
Right.
So now I go into crazy mode because now I'm terrified. This is called crossing the adaptive valley.
What if it's something you can't learn fast, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah,
Look, what if I come to you and I say, hey, are you a Jiu-Jitsu expert, Eric? And you're like, yes, I am. I'm like, okay, cool. Why don't you meet me in 2 weeks and we're going to do Jiu-Jitsu? And you have 2 weeks to go fucking crazy and learn all you know about Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay, so what we're talking about now is this is not a trivial skill.
Fixing transmissions is?
No. Let's slow it down.
Okay.
You have to be able to have a feel for what adaptive valleys you can cross.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Right.
So if
in
you're
other
a
words, if you
carpenter,
just say like, "Hey, I could run this country,"
I run businesses.
I
have
businesses.
hotels.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have a problem because you really have to learn Washington in order to run it.
Right.
And if you have no plan to do that, then you're just bullshitting your way through everything.
Like
hypothetically.
Yeah, like this. I've heard
hypothetically.
this situation.
Hypothetically. Okay. Now, but my point is that there are lots of things that don't have those characteristics where something is really hard, but you may have to invent something in order to get out of it. So there's, dumb enough to get in, smart enough to get out is kind of the magic formula. Bite off more than you can chew, but if you actually, feel called, you can summon the will, you can summon the intellect, you can summon your friends, your resources to somehow get across the adaptive valley.
But isn't it the problem that it leaves open the possibility you won't be able to get across that valley? Whereas with someone who is an expert in the field and who's worked very hard through apprenticeship, through schooling, whatever it is, to become an expert in this field can tell you definitively, yes, Eric, I can fix your computer. I've fixed computers for a living. I know exactly how to attach a motherboard to...
Let's at least agree that you're making the point that, don't overpromise.
Yes.
Don't underdeliver.
Yes.
Okay, but we all know that.
We all know that?
We all know that that's the general good advice.
So,
but I can play the guy who allow him to kill himself.
I'm trying to give contrarian advice.
The more women that overpromise and underdeliver, the more people are going to go, you know what? You can't fucking hire these chicks because they don't deliver.
I don't think that that's
right.
Get pissed. I think that what's happening is that there are certain characteristics that are very valuable in low variance.
I bet he's going to leave. Check it out.
Things that you want every time to work out.
Okay, like
child rearing, or particular kinds of surgery.
Yes.
Right? It's a simple appendectomy. I don't want to get fancy. Just the appendectomy and don't screw it up.
Right.
Okay. Those are low variance processes. Now you've got some sort of crazy conjoined twins that nobody's ever seen.
Jesus. These people, they're crazy, man. All fucked up.
before, right? And the question is, what are we going to do?
Right.
Well, do you think that that is potentially within your ability, even though nobody's ever successfully pulled it off before? You have to overpromise to some extent. Like, there's a guy who's going to try to do a head transplant. You know, we had somebody who had transplant with monkeys in the early 70s, Robert White or something.
Yeah.
So, you know, this came out of Jim Watson said this thing, which I think is just brilliant. Which is, if you're going to do something amazing, you are by definition unqualified to do it.
That's Watson, Crick and Watson.
That's right. Now, the point was is that those guys did not know enough biochemistry to do the double helix.
But why do you think that that's good advice to give to women to overpromise? I still don't understand that.
If you cannot overpromise, you may not be able to win a bidding war for the right to do a project.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing it very, very safe, and other people are saying, yeah, I can get that done faster and cheaper.
See, the cynic in me says you're telling people to bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
I like to know
Right.
whether or not someone can actually
famous Bill
deliver
Gates.
on what we're
So
talking
when
about.
Bill Gates talked to IBM, he didn't have an operating system. He said that he did. That created a panic situation. How often do you have a product and you announce the date for the product before the engineering is done?
But are you talking about outliers? Are you talking about people that pulled things off that, you know, the average person probably doesn't? I mean, how many people fall by the wayside? How many people do overpromise? And
This is what I'm trying to get at,
Yeah.
which is if you value regularity, then underpromise, overdeliver.
right?
If you value Shackleton-like outliers, you may have to overpromise and overdeliver.
So-
and then wait.
Okay, let's go.
And you may have to risk overpromising and underdelivering.
And you think women are averse to that?
Oh, absolutely.
So women are averse to bullshitting people.
Absolutely. They are
That's
much.
good. I like them. I'm
I
gonna start
know.
hiring chicks. I'm gonna start hiring chicks for the reason you're telling them to not be the way they are.
But we're failing to communicate, Joe.
No, we're not. No, I'm just playing
All right.
devil's advocate and picking you apart a little bit.
That's okay.
But I think,
In other words, when you start hearing people say, "Why aren't there more female founders of
It's like them.
billion-dollar
It's
plus
like the technology
tech
app.
companies?" My feeling is that a lot
So
of
if
those
I say,
people
oh,
who
you
do
can
found
set
such companies
60% or
are in this
70%
kind of fast and loose
I had
outlier
to
game.
lie and say
And
90%.
Very often, females,
Although 70%
specifically
is true,
because of the crazy
I
demands
have
of
to
child
say
rearing,
90%.
which is like something you cannot screw up. You have to be on all
Yeah.
the time. You have to be incredibly regular. Have a very strong ethic of not screwing up, which is positive. I don't want to say that it's negative.
Right.
I'm not saying that it's negative. What I am saying is that if you are not happy because you are not represented in the outlier category, understand that not screwing up is not a behavior pattern that leads to outlier level results.
I see what you're saying. So they almost have to go away from their natural instincts and adopt a different pattern of behavior to achieve extraordinary success.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to tell a lot more men, hey, you can't keep promising and failing to come through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, it would be better if we had higher regularity from some men who chronically overpromise and chronically underdeliver. And we had more women who were trying to swing for the fences if the feeling is, why are we not represented at the highest level of certain kinds of activities? So, all right. So what I'm trying to get at is that we are not currently feeling safe enough to have these style of conversations where we're saying, look, to what extent are we holding ourselves back?
Well,
Are we holding you back? What is it that we need to be doing? Or are we talking about the glass floor as well as the glass ceiling? So, the bricklayer unions is a famous example where if you look for pictures of bricklayers, you'll generally see a bunch of guys, very few women, and there's no complaint that these have not been integrated. So there are ways in which you don't find women in the pinball arcades, you don't find them in bricklayers unions, and you find fewer of them founding, multi-billion-dollar tech companies. So how do we feel about that? I don't know. I mean, the key question is, if you want to see change, you have
that
to
card is
risk
real bad. You have to
having
pay
a real
3 mana.
conversation about these
Then
things.
cast
What
2
we were trying
instant
to do
sorceries
was to decouple
to deal 1
intelligence
damage.
from this problem and say it's much more temperament and
It's
interest.
fucking
And the person
stupid.
who made that point on Dave Rubin's show a month before the Google memo leaked was my wife. And she didn't get attacked because she said, look, I was in an incredibly, basically an all-male environment. I wasn't happy because of the temperament and interest. When it got highly competitive, I didn't want to spend my energy and my time fighting. She has like a Nobel quality result in economics. And her feeling was, it's just not worth it to get into some multi-decade pissing match with incredibly powerful people. My feeling about this is, those guys are going down. We're going to fight them. A book came out called The Physics of Wall Street that I encourage women to read. The chapter called A New Manhattan Project, and the epilogue discusses her contribution. And in fact, we sort of walked away from it in part because she didn't want to go to war.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with not wanting to go to war. But that is a
kind of
very big temperamental difference. That is not a cognitive difference. And that's what I think DeMoore was saying.
Ouch.
Now, I think you and I would both agree that we would never want anyone to discriminate against women for a job that they're qualified for and that they're looking to get into.
Mm-hmm.
If they're good at it, we would like to see we would like to see a quality of opportunity, right?
More than that.
More than that?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about how many women are offline and you think of it as like, just stop thinking about it in terms of like social good and think about it as, like an oil field that hasn't been tapped. Just there are neural fields.
I see what you're saying. So
Huge numbers of
potential.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, you were just talking about Jews in physics.
Mm-hmm.
So 1/4 of 1% of the world's population, 125% of the Nobel Prizes in physics are thereabout.
Right.
Very few Asian females have Nobel Prizes. If I were trying to figure out, like with oil fields, I wouldn't go to Texas to try to find more oil because I figured it'd be pretty well picked over. I'd try to find some other place. It's like, I'm going to find great waves, not in Hawaii, but I'm going to go to the Arctic, right? So let's say Asian females have a huge percentage of the world's neurons basically untapped. If you want to make tons of money, if you want to cure cancer, if you want to do all these things, figure out how to bring those neurons fully online. So it's not just a question of nobody wants to keep them out. There's a huge prize to be won for figuring out the puzzle.
Right, but has it not been proved that gender and sex have a role in what people are attracted to or interested in? So why should we assume that just because we have these systems,
right,
like whether they're economic systems, whether it's starting a business or whether it's working in tech, why should we assume that women would want to do that? Why should we encourage them to do that if they're not interested in it? And why do we put so much value in it just because it generates an incredible amount of money? Do you think that maybe what we're looking at is natural patterns? There's natural patterns where, this is what Damore argued, that men gravitate towards certain things more often than women, and that was one of the things that was so disturbing to me that was overlooked about his memo. He had a full page and a half dedicated to trying to encourage in various ways to try to encourage women to get into tech. Right. Nobody talked about that. The other thing that they didn't do is no one, not no one, but many of the people that republished his work and took snippets of it, they didn't publish the citations.
Right, or the bibliography.
Yeah, which is like,
didn't shock my guy.
Yeah, it's immoral. But it's what it is back to your cult analogy.
It's a pretty
These people are in a
engine.
cult, and
That's
this
it.
was a challenge to the ideology of the cult.
So, but look, let's look at it from the felt
Hydro.
experience. And the felt experience is, if you've already struggled as a woman against incredible odds to be in tech to begin with, you know that there's somebody whispering, yeah, she's not very good. They only hired her because she was female. You're sick of this shit.
Right.
So you have to appreciate that the lived experience of the women inside of Google is that they know that
They
some
got me, I
percentage of
think.
those guys who are saying,
6
hey, I just want to talk about
twice.
studies, are actually pissed off.
Right.
Well,
So their bullshit detectors are set very, very
one drug,
high. They
2
think they're
parts.
hearing dog whistles everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I don't think we should
6,
be blaming
7, open field,
women who
4,
have been
5, 6.
subjected to this as if this is not a real thing. There really are dog whistles. There really are people who don't want women in
I
tech
had a horrible
and want to
one.
go back to an all-boys club, blah, blah, blah.
For sure, but that's not really what we're saying, are we?
No, we aren't. I don't think.
Okay.
Right?
No.
But the issue is, what if I need to do some relatively minimal
If I can
amount
win
of
with 4 health,
kind
I'm
of
awesome.
intellectual
I did it with 1.
terraforming to get all of these female neurons to work on all of these amazing problems?
Counter?
So what if the people who have the answer
That's
for
what's good. I'm
say
done.
cancer or
GG. You got me,
AGI
bro.
or who knows happen to be female? What if I needed to do some things in order to make the environment more attractive? Like, for example, programming in Teams has, to some extent, replaced cowboy programming, where just some guy with his code and, a set of headphones, and he goes to it. Okay, so that's what he was talking about. Like, to what extent can you actually change the nature of work to bring these extra neurons online?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's the right reason to do this. I don't think we should value,
Just do.
like, what is coding?
Just do.
It's
Fuck
some
it.
sort of highly logical,
If
very
it's
technical,
horrible,
persnickety
then stop
activity
doing it.
that's highly compensated. Everybody wants in. If it's poorly compensated, only people who are sort of addicted to it would want it.
Right.
And it happens to be sort of high status at the moment, and so there's this feeling of, okay, this must be an all-boys club.
Again.
And maybe it grew up as an all-boys club, and maybe it has particular attributes. But the thing that I'm looking at...
How do you get the same car twice?
Is that I'm thinking about particular high-ability females who
I know how to
have left the
fucking
game
program.
or who have sort of gone into a
You get the
lower
same car
intensity
twice. You
mode
only have
because
1.
they're just sick of being in an
That's
all-male environment.
0.5%
So if I can interject, you're trying to
times
discourage attrition.
6.
I'm trying to discourage
That's
attrition
half
of the
a 6,
amazing people who
3%,
have something deep
really?
and powerful.
And they get it
important to
twice?
say.
So
I
the
don't have a
environment of
program.
these places is contrary to them
Oh my
establishing
God.
whatever strengths that they have.
So let me give. I would rather not talk about women, and I'd rather talk about something I know very, very well, which is myself.
Okay.
So 4.5 years ago, I gave some talks on physics, which were terrifying to me because I wasn't trained as a physicist, and they got a lot of attention and publicity at Oxford. I don't like the unpleasantness of intellectual one-upsmanship and negging, if you will, that takes place in particle theory. It's a turn-off to me. And so I've sort of stayed away for 4.5 years because I didn't like how unpleasant and hyper, like exaggeratedly masculine it was.
Why do you think that exists?
Well, because it's a huge prize, right? I mean, if you're trying to gain Einstein's mantle, it's still a game.
He's another fucking retard, Einstein.
Times man of the century. So
because of this huge prize, there's also
Einstein
a lot
died
of
of an aortic ruptured aneurysm.
yeah, but there's a lot of
Something the fucking turkey.
bravado.
Yeah, it's like a dick measuring
Why do I say
contest that
turkey?
does nothing for me.
Because turkeys used to get
So
wet
my point
hair
is that
before they
as a
were
guy who's been in
slaughtered for
mathematics,
Thanksgiving.
physics, economics,
How
finance,
did
and tech, that's
people
5
fix
hyper
that?
male fields.
Copper on their
There are some of
pallets.
them that I just
That's
can't
it.
stand because they're too exaggeratedly male.
He's a
And
fucking
you
retard.
feel like criticism is exaggeratedly male.
It's not just criticism, it's just like
Snarky.
stupid, mean-spirited, non-constructive
Sounds
takedown
like that
stuff.
Mean Girl show. It's a female show. Maybe Housewives of Beverly Hills. That's pretty takedowny.
Yeah, that's a different version.
So, this has made you avoid these particular
It makes
pursuits.
lots of us men.
And you think women, they would be more so likely to avoid,
Us
and you would
men.
lose
That's
the
awful.
contributions
I'm just trying to
to
say-
a lot of these brilliant minds.
Part of the problem is
I
that
don't
every
get-
time you have an extremely kind of overly, like an exaggeratedly toxic culture,
Einstein's a retard. Get over it.
you get attrition from people who are really good at it who just don't like to go into work.
Makes sense.
And putting that on women is not fair, right? I don't want to do labor economics at Harvard for the same reason. It's a really unpleasant.
I read
I
stupid
understand
too.
that once they've actually gotten to the game,
Yeah.
right? But is that what keeps them from pursuing the game, or is it natural inclinations towards other pursuits?
I
And
believe it's a mixture.
it's a mixture,
Right.
like
So-
most things, right?
Well, this is really what Demore was saying. He was saying there's a
You're an
50-50 default
extroverted
baseline that you adopt.
intellectual.
I don't think
Yeah.
I, James Demore, don't think that we should accept 50-50. We should figure out what percentage of this has to do with interest and inclination, and that should be an adjustment. And then
What
we should,
percentage has to do with prejudice and
right. So break it into two components.
right.
We're off of 50. It's A plus B, where A is the natural amount that it should favor one gender or sex over the other, and then B is the extent of systematic bias.
That's a very analytical, and I think a very
I think it's
objective.
exactly what he was saying.
I think it is exactly.
Right.
You're one of the very few people that has broken it down like that. It became this weird ideological struggle.
But I got into tremendous trouble because I let off a tweet that was about biologists,
Yeah.
right? Because Richard Dawkins had just been deplatformed at Berkeley, where he was going to speak as a biologist. My brother,
Yeah, what was that about? Why did they deplatform?
Why,
probably
just kills
because
it?
he said something uncharitable about Islam, which
Yeah.
we have to get back to.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
But the
bullshit.
key point was that I had 3 biologists, Demore,
I'm
Dawkins,
scared.
and Weinstein, who had
Gonna
all
play
been
3
deplatformed.
wins
So I
like
let off a
this guy.
tweet about, for
Yeah.
God's sake, stop teaching people that they should run to HR rather than code, which had nothing to do with harassment at all. It was really just about seeing a woman who deleted her tweet, and I haven't talked about this until now because I felt that I reacted to her deleted tweet, and then I still have it on my computer, but I didn't want to bring it up, and then I was left sort of holding the bag.
Right. What was the tweet?
It was something like, "Dear Google, don't teach my daughter to run to HR for financial freedom rather than code. Thanks, a dad." And that was interpreted as like, "Oh, suck it up if you're being harassed in the workplace." Now, do not suck it up if you were being harassed in the workplace. I don't know how to make that
Ouch.
clearer, but it's about if somebody's talking like a biologist and they're saying, "Oh, well, there's prenatal testosterone, and there are these psychometrics, and these are the conserved differences across cultures." That's not a reason to go to HR. That's a reason to figure out whether the person is making sense, not making sense, to take them on the arguments. I feel very passionately about that.
Well, I think discourse and free speech is incredibly important. When you distort what that guy was saying and you turn it into this hateful attack on women, you've shut down discourse and you've discouraged anybody else that has any sort of unusual opinion or unusual observation from coming forth, because you're essentially limiting free speech to free speech that you agree with.
All right,
and this is what happened.
Well, I agree with this, but think about how difficult it has been. You know, as soon as I say learn how to overpromise and then overdeliver, or risk underdelivering, that can take up 10 minutes. Like, are you telling me to bullshit and not come through? No, I'm not saying that.
I know what you're saying.
But all of these higher level points all have lower level misinterpretations, right? And so, you know, in this circumstance, it's also important to realize that after so many years of putting up with sort of whisper campaigns, it is understandable that women are sick of the shit.
Right.
So that's true too.
There's that too, right? Yeah.
So the key question is, are we going to just deplatform all the biologists? Are we going to pretend that there are no differences? Are we going to gender and sex have absolutely nothing to do with each other? Like, this sort of fantasy life that you can try to lead in a progressive context is going to destroy the underpinnings of Western civilization.
Right.
Oh my God, really? You could do that? I didn't know that. It's amazing.
How do you do the oven? Does it have a sound when it starts?
These recruits make cooking bad look good.
No, it doesn't.
It's something different.
Yeah, you kind of got here.
I rely on social media to let people know that I have a podcast coming out. You know, like right before the podcast, I was like, what's your Twitter? So I could tweet it.
Yeah.
And then I also like to promote comedy dates and to let people know about cool shit that I find.
Yeah.
But the interaction is so weird. Like, especially, there's like a bunch of different kinds of interaction. Like, Instagram is one of the weird ones because the cuntiest people all have blocked pages.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they're blocking, don't look at me, and they just say nasty shit to people, but they have these blocked pages. It's like, but I think it's so funny how that seems to be like, it's so common, but it makes sense. It's like they're blocked off, and they're attacking people and saying shitty things to people, and I'm not even talking about to me. I'm talking about like when I go to someone else's page and I read cunty things, I always go to that. I go, let's see if that guy's blocked. Yep, he's blocked. How funny. Like, it's super common. It's like this weird thing that people are doing with each other where it's not real interaction. And I feel like the people that are perpetrating it are extremely unhealthy, which is why they're saying such nasty, vicious shit in the first place. It's really, really odd.
They're lonely.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Or in some way. Or disconnected or disenfranchised, or they feel inferior.
Yeah.
And so they lash out and they want other people to feel the way they feel.
And so one.
Not gonna work. Not gonna work. Could go like that full retard. Get 10-9. Everything's gonna be too damn expensive. Destructor artifact arm chamber. Now, should I just play like land card? Let's go with artifact. That's stupid card. Where are you? It's really good. Stupid, but really good. There we go. So many of you get at the start of the game. If you get at the start of the game, you got like 2 lane cards right there. Let's see.
What I feel when you say that, like one thing that's missing there is empathy.
Yeah.
In that whatever that interaction is.
Yeah.
It's this removed story that you're making up some like whatever you want the world to, you're projecting your shit out into the world. You're not actually slowing down enough to, you can sit here and give opinions or whatever all day long, but but to what you said though, it is a weird position, but I think the way that things are going, so we are using these tools, social media, to connect us and to get messages out. But the way that the millennial generation is going is that what they value and what they want to spend their money on are meaningful experiences, which means, generally speaking, a live in-person event. And I think there is a wave of things going back to this. So, as a tool, we need that. I mean, this is amazing. This platform, this podcast you have that touching so many people, or just Twitter, whatever it is. But then it can be, used for incredible good to bring people together, I think. And then, so what's missing in that social media interaction? I don't know. Maybe it balances out. Maybe it doesn't. I don't really know.
It's a message in a bottle. You just gotta make sure it's a good message. You have to be cognizantly aware, I think, of how other people are going to receive it without actually getting that reception back from them. And that's where it gets real weird. And you have to, I think, apply the same principles that you would in communicating with other people, without actually communicating with them, without seeing them, without getting the social cues, without looking them in the eye. And we're a weird thing, man.
So this might not make sense, but I'm going to bring it back to connect to the wilderness stuff, what we're talking about in this sense of this sort of isolation and loneliness that we have. And for me, in my life, where I learned to connect with others, where I really learned to sort of give it up, let go, be present with people, was in the wilderness. It was doing that job out in the desert with kids, out there for 8 to 20 days at a time with these kids, where that was my job. It was my job to simply be with them, and in a way, to be with them in a way that was, obviously with a lot of boundaries and everything, but to be really real, just to be totally real and honest and straightforward, call bullshit when we saw bullshit, be empathetic, and it was just like this crazy crash course in human connection, and it happened to be out in the wilderness. But so what I think, I don't know, this is it'll tie together, but for me, I started to feel way, way, way more human being out there in the wilderness. Just being out there where it was quiet, being out there where, if I sat on a rock, I was sitting on a rock, and the sun was on me, and all of my senses were engaged, very aware of my body. We were in these groups where we were practicing being very aware of what we felt and being able to feel and express that. And it just felt like, since then, for me, it all comes back to being out in the wilderness, but since then, all the other things I've engaged in, meditation, the men's group stuff, all the other even psychedelics, things like that, all the things that I've experienced, all, for me, tie back to that thing. And it comes down to what I feel is being totally, as much as you can, truly present. Just here, right? And you can write a Twitter message from that place of being present, right? That's fine. I mean, there's nothing necessarily wrong or bad about that. But
but don't check the responses every 3 minutes for the next 6 hours. Like a fucking maniac. Yeah. It's a matter of, I guess, rationing some of that social media stuff, or rationing some of that online interaction with other people. I feel like as time has gone on, I've gotten much more of my online interaction in like an educational form, in terms of like interesting articles, science things that don't involve like a social interaction or opinion as much as they involve really fascinating facts.
Yeah.
Like something that I found today, they think that North America might have been settled by humans as much as 100,000 years earlier than they thought.
I saw that.
You see that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
It's insane. Like, that kind of shit freaks me out. I love that kind of stuff, because that kind of stuff is just pure curiosity and pure wonder, and the imagination goes wild thinking about what it must have been like to be one of these early humans surviving or trying to survive. If they didn't, we wouldn't be here. And these mastodon fossils, they found them. The bones were shattered, and there's rocks nearby that do not seem like they were brought anywhere. So it was 1992. They were doing highway construction near San Diego, and they found these odd-looking bones, and then they started doing these studies on them, and they found their mastodon bones, and they didn't have the ability to do carbon testing and get a real accurate assessment back then. But now they do, and so now when they're checking these bones and the way these
always
bones
picking to the red, huh?
they're pretty sure that they had been shattered purposely, like to get to the marrow.
So that's a great example of a positive benefit. Yesterday, I meditated for about 80 minutes or so, and then I sat up afterwards, and I clicked on my phone and opened Facebook, and the first thing I clicked on was a video of a woman in slow motion who stuck her ass out the window of a bus and just shat the street. And I had to laugh to myself, man. I was just like in this zone, I was in this beautiful place, and then open and watch. I was like, oh my god.
Another one, I don't know. Should I just play this guy? Let's see. Maybe if I pay 3, play this guy, draw a card. Alright, let's do that. Enters the battlefield, draw a card. We can charge first. Let's see what happens. Or, yeah, just put the land card, draw another card. Yeah, and charge. Yes. And his name is John C.
Some people just don't want to fucking exercise. It's weird. They would so much rather go to a doctor and get a pill. It's so strange.
A lot of people.
Well, it's this fear of discomfort. People have this extreme feeling in their mind when it comes to their associations with exercise. They want to avoid discomfort. They feel like any type of exercise is just like something to be avoided. That's not for me. Fuck that. I don't want to sweat. I don't want to strain. And a lot of times this association that they have is about the beginnings of getting in shape. It's not about once you're actually fit. Because once you're actually fit, exercise is something you look forward to. It's an alleviation of stress. It feels great. Like, if I can't get a workout in, I look at my schedule. I go, oh, shit, I don't have any time for a workout, which means I'm not going to get that good feeling. And so instead of looking at it like, oh, I've got to go grunt and sweat, I'm thinking I'm not going to feel good. I'm not going to feel relaxed. I'm not going to feel carefree. And I'm not going to feel even appreciative. Like, my appreciation of things, and it gets enhanced greatly after exercise. I just feel better. I feel like I can take things in for what they are, rather than, whatever sensory data that I'm getting from any event is just one more distraction that gets in my way. And that's a lot of times how I look at things if I'm overstressed or if I'm working too much.
Totally, beautifully put. Because that's exactly like at least what's been shown from like neuroimaging studies is that exercise does what you're talking about is the executive function. You're talking about feeling good without that sensory stuff, which is the amygdala, it's the emotional center, that's been shown to be decreased in activity after exercise, whereas the executive function is increased. So it's exactly in the right direction, right? So you're able to logically think about this more, and you feel good, and it's like you're not that sensory response, that like gut anxiety. You don't feel it as much. That part of your brain's actually quieter after exercise. Meditation does a similar thing, but if there was just a way to get this knowledge for people to understand, people that are adverse to exercising, if there was just some way, and I'm really trying to find a way, because there are many people that I care about in my life that are that way, and that feel depressed and are on some sort of antidepressant, which doesn't really work for them still. And so I'm trying to find a way, like how, like I can tell them, I'm having this conversation with you, and you get it because you experience it. You exercise, you eat healthy, you experience these things. But for someone that's never experienced it, how do you communicate it to them?
It's so hard for people to start anything new. It's hard for people to start a pottery class. It's not gonna be involved with any physical pain or any stress or any.
I'm done. Very cool. We're being conscious. How about that? It's being conscious. La bola que de nuevo se cayó en el patio. ¿Necesitas llave? Madre mía, tengo un día. Yeah. Exit, cancel the stream. Well, you did what you could. You had the freedom you were privileged to have. Welcome home. It's hellhole called home.